Welcome, everyone, to another edition of What Drives You. I'm Stan Windhorn. I'm here with the host of the show, Mr. Carl Bauer in Chicago, Illinois. Hello, Carl.
Hi, Stanley.
Carl, we've got an interesting guest today because we've talked about the Lucky Rabbit when we had Matt Delahousse as our guest a couple of weeks ago, but they have a bike night last night, and I pulled into the parking lot and I saw this big truck that had a wrap on it that said Law Tigers, motorcycle attorneys. And I've heard of them so much before. And it turns out that Matt knows our guest, Joe Dominguez. And so Joe and I got to talking, and he was nice enough to take some time and join us. So, Joe, welcome to What Drives You.
Hey, I'm glad to be here, man. And it was very nice meeting you.
Yes, likewise. So obviously you're a motorcycle guy, but let's just kind of start with a little bit about Law Tigers for maybe people who don't know, and then you could tell us a little bit about how you got involved with the company.
Okay. Law Tigers, we are motorcycle attorneys for personal injury. Anybody that's been injured in a motorcycle accident, and it happens all the time because people are on their cell phones while driving. I don't understand that. But anyways, anybody that needs us, we're there for them. We do free case evaluation. We got a bunch of other stuff going on for free as well for the client. It's just like a regular attorney at the end where they get a percentage of whatever they get you. But there's no money out of pocket. We take care of you. We know riders. I've been riding probably since I was 10 years old. And everybody who is a marketer for their attorney's offices, we've all been riding. We love riding. It's what we do. You know what I mean? So we understand the rider.
That's your current bike right behind you there in your background, right?
Yeah, that's one of them. It's a 08 Vikla. I put it together because I'm Hispanic, I guess. So I like a Vikla bike. The style turns me on. But I'm also a sport bike guy. So I ride a 2012 ZH2, which is Kawasaki's naked version of their supercharged bike. And my bike's supercharged. I had it tuned. It's got a pipe. It's probably about 220 horse. It's my everyday bike, if I called it an everyday bike, you know?
Yeah. So the one behind you is more when you're going to go to a show or a rally or yeah.
That's my 55 Chevy.
Have you been to the bike night at the Lucky Rabbit before?
Yes, I have. I support Central Harley Davidson, who goes out there a lot. And so in supporting that dealership, we do everything for them. We can do whatever they want, you know. My job isn't to sell anything to them. My job is to support them. And along with two other, I'd say I've got about 200 shops that I visit quarterly, which is in Houston and Austin. So all these guys know me, and it's about building relationships, you know. So it was funny. I was at Buffalo Wild Wings right now because it's right next to the hotel I'm staying at. But I was talking to the bartender there, and he's like, yeah, I mean, some people don't tip. I said, dude, you're in marketing. I said, I've got months to build relationships with my dealerships, my shops, everything. I go, you got at best 20 minutes to build that relationship in order to get that tip. I say, your job for me is a lot harder, you know?
But, good point.
Yeah. So that's pretty much what we do with Law Tigers. There's other attorneys out there, and they're trying to muscle in on our territory and all that, but they don't get it. They don't get it. They're not.
There's some
people.
guy, I see his stuff here in Austin every now and then. He's got kind of dreadlocks, I think. He's the
I don't know
attorney
that
who
guy.
rides. I
It's
don't remember
crazy.
his name.
I saw
Yeah,
that billboard.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we found out yesterday that you and I have Southern California in common. I had lived there for many, many years. Now, do you still live in Orange County, California?
No, I don't. I live in League City, which is close to Kemah, South Houston, I guess, real
Okay.
South Houston. Um, but I still go out there. It's funny because my son-in-law, he's the master tech at Riverside Harley Davidson,
Oh,
and my daughter still lives out in Riverside, California, and I was in Huntington Beach for a long while and didn't grow up there, but I grew up in a place called Valinda, which is a small province next to West Covina and La Puente, California.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it back then it was a crazy neighborhood. So
yeah. Yeah, well, I miss Southern California. It's nice to go back and visit. Don't know that I could afford to go back to live. It's a little bit expensive there, but um, did you tell me last night that you actually had like a motorcycle shop or lot or something while you were there?
yeah, I had
Garden Grove, I think you
a
said.
it that's a crazy story because I used to do construction. I had a small construction company. It was me and like a couple of guys that I hired, and I ended up working on a gentleman's house. Do you remember there was a radio station out there, and there was a guy named the Maverick, and he would give you advice on his last name was Fabian, and he would give
Hmm.
you advice on mutual funds and all that stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, his brother hired me to work on his mansion, basically on the water, and I stayed there for like 2 years and became real good friends with him and all that. And then I walked into a motorcycle shop that a friend of mine's friend had put together, and it was just a disaster. And I said he was looking for somebody to help him straighten it out, right? Or be the service guy or whatever. And I said, well, what's it pay? And he goes, well, maybe 200 bucks a week. So I turned over all the contracts that I had to another guy that I knew who was in contracting. And then I went to work for this guy for like 200 bucks a week. And I was making at least 2,500 bucks to the head every week, you know? I
Yeah.
mean, it was good money. And my wife at the time couldn't understand it. She's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Man, I forgot how much I love this stuff, because you grow up with it." I started out on mini bikes. I build cars as well. Uh, it's not just motorcycles. I'm a gearhead. I go way back.
Yeah.
And she didn't understand it and thought I was crazy. And then I went to work for him, learned a little bit more about what he was doing, and he was pretty much a genius as far as how he sold things and did things. He's still in business. His business is actually called Cycles Unlimited out in Huntington Beach, and
Okay.
Clay Harris is his name. He's my brother, put it that way. And then I told him one day, I said, you know what, dude, I'm going to open my own shop. And he's like, what? He goes, you know how many people I know that say they're going to do something and they don't do it. And then I did it. Right. So
Yeah.
he's like, you're the only one that ever tells me they're going to do something and they do it. And I guess that goes into the whole I'm driven,
Yeah.
and I like to do what I say, and I like to complete what I tell somebody that I'm going to do. The biggest part I've ever had, the biggest problem I've ever had accomplishing that goal is I don't know what it is, but I get a Mustang and it goes up on jack stands and I start buying parts and motors and all this stuff. And it just sits there, man.
Yeah.
And I run out of time and I sidetrack myself with other stuff. to where that project just doesn't get done and I end up selling it, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I don't think you're alone on that one, Joe. I think a lot of
no,
us have those kinds of things. I find it really interesting that you were giving up a well-paying job for something that paid you a lot less because that's where your passion was.
yeah, for me, it's a feel good thing, man. I can't enjoy life unless I feel good about it. You know, it's like having a job and you're working for a dude that's hounding you. You go home stressed every night. And, you know what I mean? And you
Yeah.
take it out on your kids or your wife, and you don't mean to. It's what happens. It's what
Yeah.
humans do. They take out their frustrations on other people, you know, and I man, can we get a little personal here?
Sure.
Okay.
Why not?
I grew up in a household where I had a alcoholic mother, and I had a stepfather who wasn't of the same nationality. Let's put it that way. So I guess we were. I had a brother and a sister. Okay, and I guess we were like a burden to him or whatever. He took on more than he can chew. So it wasn't nice. Put it that way.
Yeah.
I mean
Yeah.
it is that whole mixture was a mixture for disaster, and it left me as a guy growing up. um it left me as a guy that didn't want to be like that, you know what I mean? And so many people grow up in households like that and they can't separate themselves from
Yeah.
being like that.
They repeat that pattern instead
Ex-
of going, I don't want to be that way.
exactly.
Yeah.
And
Well, good for
I
you.
did. And my biggest part about growing up is I never knew who my father was, you know. So,
Okay.
and I ended up joining the Marine Corps because my cousin did. And I get it. And I'm like, he's like, yeah, we could hang out at Pendleton and all this stuff, right? So I'm like, cool. So I joined, go through training and all that. By the time I get out of basic training, this fool got kicked out for smoking weed, right? I'm like, well, I'm going to make the best out of it. So I did. I did my time. I was with HML 267, which was Hueys and Cobras. And then from there, I went to be a machinist and ended up at First FSSG in Camp Pendleton, which was right in Delmar on the beach. So I had a pretty
Yeah.
good time. You know, we didn't have any wartime or anything like that. So it was just what happened, you know. But back to the whole parental thing, when I got out, I'm like, man, I don't even know who, right? Because you're going, I never knew my real dad. I
Yeah.
know the stepdad and who he was, and he
Right.
was an asshole. You know what I mean? And I knew who my mom was, and she wasn't much better. And I hate to say that. And I always envied the guy that said, you know what? I got my mom's so great, this and that. She does it. I always envied that, man. And my
Right.
household was so dysfunctional. When I'd go work on houses in construction, I'd be like, so this is what it's like, you know,
Oh,
grandma's coming over, you know, you got the kids at the table, and I just never understood it, you know. So,
right. So,
but
so when you started a family, were you able to kind of do it the way you were seeing others did
oh
it?
no, I made a lot of mistakes there as far as being in the family part of it. I mean, uh, I've been through, I mean, I don't want to make myself look bad, but it's all about honesty. And that's what I try to teach my son right now is, man, if you're dishonest about the little things, you're never going to be honest about the big things. You know what I
Oh, the
mean?
big
So,
question. Yeah.
so if you're lying to me, I can't trust you. You know, if I catch you in the small eyes, I can't trust you. Same with my wife currently. I mean, who is my actual soulmate. She understands me completely, you know.
Nice.
But yeah, man. So let me get back to that whole thing where I found my dad. So
Sure.
my mom ended up running into her his sister at a Home
Okay.
Depot. So she brings her to the house and all that, right? And I asked her, I said, hey, uh, I'm trying to find my dad. Where is he? And she goes, Mijo, don't worry about him. You don't want to talk to that guy. He's an asshole. Right? So I'm like, all right, cool. I said, whatever. I said, but I still want to meet him. Where does he live? So she tells me a street, right? And it was in Whittier, and it was off of Painter and Whittier Boulevard. And that's a
Okay.
large, I don't know if you ever seen it. And she goes, he
Sure.
lives in a house like that. So I go over there, and I'm 27, I think. And I start, the first house I go to says no soliciting. So I don't knock on the door. I go to the next one. I spent the entire day going up and down this street, knocking on everybody's door to see if they knew this guy with my name, right?
Yeah.
And nobody did. And I'm in the car. It like 2 hours later, I'm sitting in the car and I'm like, man, I gotta get out of here. And then I go, I can't. And I get out and I go to that one house that had the no soliciting sign. And
Yeah.
this old guy comes to the door and he goes, hey, he goes, what do you want? And I said, I'm looking for my dad. I said, look, I don't want him for anything. I just want to know who he is, this, that, and this is his name. And he goes, he's a Mexican dude. He goes, yeah, don't you have a friend that last name? She goes, yeah, she lives around the corner. And I'm like, what? And it happened to be his other sister. So
Oh,
they call her up on the phone, and I go over there, and she's like, oh, little Joe. She went
yeah.
crazy, right? And that's how I ended up there. Ugh,
Yeah.
got
So
real.
how was the reunion then when you met?
It was crazy. And here's so all your life you're told this guy's an asshole. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
you go, I get him on the phone at her house, and he says, who is this? I said, it's Joe. I'm named after you. And he says, what? Huh? And you can hear the terror in his voice. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Like it was
yeah.
like, what is going on? So I go, hey, I want to meet. And he goes, well, I'm driving truck right now and blah, blah, blah. I said, dude, if we can't meet today, then we're never going to meet, because if you're putting me off on this, I don't want to meet you. And he says, all right, well, here's my address. Turns out he lived not more than 10 minutes away from the house I had been living in for 14 years. Never ran into the guy, the whole 9 yards. I call my brother, right? And I said, hey, I called him Harry because uh, he he had this little mustache, so everybody called him Hair Lip, you know. So
Okay.
I shortened it to Harry, and I'm like, Harry, I go, I found the old man, and he's like, what? And I go, yeah, I found him. And he goes, where's he live? And I told him, he goes, that's right down the street. And I said, yeah. He goes, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going over there right now. You want to come with me? He goes, hell yeah. I go, look, if this guy's an asshole, I said, I'm going to sock him and you steal his wallet. He goes, I'm in. So we go over there with these intentions, right? It was a bad neighborhood, you know?
Yeah.
So we go over there with these intentions, and this guy opens the door, and he's 6'4", looks exactly like my brother. And I'm like,
Wow.
oh my God, this is your father. You know?
Yeah.
So we get inside, and we're sitting there, and the small talk happens and all that shit. We're sitting across from him, and he goes, well, what do you guys want? I said, I want the truth. I said, for years, I've heard you were an asshole. And he goes, yeah, I kind of am. And I said, well, why did you leave? And he goes, and he like starts sweating and shaking and shit. And he's sitting on his lounge chair that he's had forever, right? And he
Yeah.
goes, well, what have you heard? And I said, I heard you were an asshole and that you split. And he goes, well, I was driving truck at the time because he used to have his own little trucking company. But he
Yeah.
swears that deregulation at the time killed him. And it
Mm,
probably did kill a lot of people. You know what I mean? He goes, I put all
yeah.
my eggs in one basket. That's the one word of advice that I ever got from him. Don't put your
Don't
eggs
put all
in
your, yeah.
one basket, right?
Yeah.
So he starts going in the store and he goes, well, at the time I was building a 55 Nomad station wagon, and he said those things were terrible. The window would fog up, and I told your mother. And this is exactly the way he talked to. I told your mother, don't take the car while I'm gone. Turns out, and she was an alcoholic, right? So she ends up taking the car. It was raining. The window fogs up. She hits two people in a crosswalk.
Wow.
Yeah. And kills them. So she ends up doing time, right? So she goes to prison. And we never knew this. Here I am, 27 years old, and just finding this out. It's like
Wow.
someone tell you Santa Claus don't exist. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You're a kid and they tell you Santa Claus don't exist. And I was probably in high school when I figured that one out. No, but yeah, so and you're going, what? He goes, yeah. And I had to keep working. So I gave you kids to your grandmother and she was taking care of you for me. Right. And I'm like, wow. I said, so why'd you leave? He goes, I didn't. He goes, they had made a plan that when she got out, that they would just bail. And back then,
Mm,
there's no internet, there's no computers. You ain't
right.
finding nobody. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
God, yeah. So finding people back then was a lot harder than it is today. So that was how we got separated. How
Yeah.
we reunited is completely chance. And that's what's
Yeah.
fun about life. I mean, I don't care what you want to do in life, what you set your plan out to do in life. It's chance. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? You'll run.
Life throws roadblocks at you for sure.
Yeah.
So how did all that? I mean, that's an incredible story, but how did it shape you? How did it get you to where you are today?
Well, him being a businessman and stuff like that, I kind of took that away from him. I actually went to go live with him like for about a month, you know,
Okay.
uh, just to see who he was and all that stuff. And was he an asshole? Yeah, he was. But I didn't have him as a dad growing up, so I can't take that part away from him. You know what I mean? I don't know how it would have been if I had grown up with him. You know,
Right.
uh, the DNA is what the DNA is. I still am part of him, and
Yeah.
whatever his business intentions were are the same as mine. You know, it's funny that the best part about it was I knew who I was at that moment. I knew
Yeah.
the part that me as an individual, I knew who I was because I knew what part was my mom. I just never knew what part was my dad, and then what
Gotcha.
part was actually me growing up. So
Yeah.
my brother ended up being the crazy one, but I I was crazy, but in a more calculated sense. And
Yeah.
as far as wanting things, I've always wanted things. You know, you grow up in a household where you're getting beat every day, and I mean,
Yeah.
just the verbal abuse alone would have cracked
Right.
most people today. They cry about everything today, but just and you have a hard time trusting people after that because you figure your mom, you got to trust your mom, right? I mean, that's your mother. And if,
Should be able to, yeah.
yeah. And if you grew up with not being able to trust a person like that, really, it's crazy. It's,
Yeah.
it's, it's hard on you. So I was always good at artwork and even in elementary school and all that stuff. kids would come up, man, you made that, you know, when you do little projects and all that stuff. And then it got
Sure.
into bicycles and mini bikes and stuff like that. I always strived for the best that I that was in the neighborhood, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
want because I enjoyed the part where it was like, dude, your shit's bad. You know what I
People
mean?
appreciated your effort and your hard work. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
curious, what was your first mini bike?
It was just some piece of trash that I got from some kid down the street, and
Yeah.
it it was funny because it had a clutch on it, and I jammed pennies in the clutch, so I turned it into a push start and wouldn't lose any traction off the line. Yeah,
Nice.
so, yeah, it was funny. We
I started off with a Honda 50 was my very first uh, little mini bike as a kid, and I wish I had that thing to this day. It was just a
That's an
little
actual
indestructible
motorcycle, sir.
machine. Yeah. Well, that's what kind of got me going on the motorcycles. I got another quick question for you about Southern California since you're a motorcycle guy. Have
Yes, sir.
you ever been to Cook's Corner?
Love Cook's Corner.
I knew you were going to say that.
Love the place.
So, Carl, Cook's Corner is this little tar paper shack of a restaurant, but on the weekends, it's really great riding. There's not as many really kind of windy, tree covered roads there than like there are here in Austin. We got a lot of great riding here, but on the weekends, hundreds and hundreds of bikes, and everybody's hanging out on the patio and you go have a hamburger and a beer or whatever. But
Oh yeah,
yeah, Cook's Corner is pretty well known in the biking community
yeah.
there in
It's a
Southern
beautiful
California.
spot.
Is that
Yeah.
Joe near? I just spent my last two work trips were out to Irvine, but then I went over to Murrieta and I took the Cortez through the mountains there. That to me, I was in my car and I was like, this would be an unbelievable bike ride.
Yeah, Murrieta is beautiful. It really is. I like it out there. I had a friend that moved out there, but I had never. Back then, when you'd go out to Murrieta, it was like little population, and you're seeing these houses, and they're beautiful, right? And you're going, man, there's got to be a lot to live out here, you know. But then you also had to think about your drive, how far you had to drive to go to work, because not everything was remote back then, you know.
Yeah.
So, but today Murrieta is crowded and still beautiful, still beautiful.
Yeah. So I'm curious, Joe, you ended up you have a artistic gift, you which I think translates into the bikes and the cars that you build, which are works of art no matter who's doing it, in my opinion. So how did you go from doing that kind of stuff to ending up with a legal firm as their marketing manager?
I been in the motorcycle industry about 30 years. Started off with Clay out at Cycles Unlimited, and then you know, just getting involved with a bunch of other stuff. Having my own shop. It was called Dead Reckoning, and it was out in Garden Grove. I had a buddy named Phil Santalacido who ended up becoming an engineer, and he was really young, but he had a mind like no other. I mean,
Hmm.
he was one of those dudes that say, you know, if we did this and we did that and we put this here, his mind would just figure out any problem that we had building a
Yeah.
new part or anything like that. And what's funny is I ended up with this guy named Collins, who was a machinist and started making us custom parts. And then we would try to sell them to Huntington Beach Harley Davidson, to the owners that were there at the time. But it was pretty crazy. I mean, we did a lot of innovative stuff to where people were like, man, but we never were able to take it to the next level. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
I think that was my biggest problem, that not allowing myself to take it to the next level. And sometimes you got to sell your soul to do stuff like that. And I'm not a selling your soul kind of guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you got to remain true to yourself, and you know, In a business sense, it's the same thing. Never burn a bridge. Always keep that connection, and you'll do all right, and make
Yeah.
that relationship. It's all about relationships. And I told him, if you live by those rules, everyone that you call your brother, everybody uses that term loose. This is my brother. You know what I mean? Brother. And but that's not true. The people you call your brother are the people you surround yourself with that you can trust with anything. That kind of brother, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah. We
uh,
got your back.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
we've talked about this with some of our other guests, just how important it is to surround yourself with the right people and people who lift you up instead of want to tear you
Yep.
down. And I think that's certainly one of the secrets in life. Man, I appreciate you coming on here, taking your time and sharing your story with us. Especially, yeah, I mean, we met less than 24 hours ago, and here you are being nice enough to come and join us and tell us your story. Appreciate it very much. Carl, I'm going to turn it over to you because I know you like to ask all of our guests some very specific questions. So get ready. You ready to
Yes,
go in the hot seat?
I'm ready.
All right. Go ahead,
Well,
Carl.
yeah, thanks, Stan. What I forgot to say earlier, Joe, after hearing your military story, was truly thank you for your service. My dad was in Korea. He served there during wartime. He didn't see much battle because he was a radio man, a cryptologist. But you know, anybody who has served time in the military and was willing to put their life out there, I just appreciate it. That's
Yeah.
true from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you.
Uh, all right, so here's the little nugget. So what we try and do on this program, this channel, is what Stan and I have called the 3 E's, which is educate, entertain, or encourage. So hopefully somebody got a little something out of there. Which my encouragement from you was messed up home, messed up parents, and you powered through, man. You are a survivor. So I am encouraged by what you shared today. So thank you for that.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
the question that I have on the car front, because again, the theme is what drives you. Talked a little bit about it. Is what was your, and since you're a motorcycle guy, maybe you want to have some preference to motorcycles. So I'll give you some leeway. You could choose a car or a bike. But what was your first bike or car?
Cars, I got 2 of them. I started off early building cars. Got into I sold a surfboard and a beach cruiser, which was probably worth a fortune today. But I sold those to pick up a 69 Datsun 510, right? 4-door. Didn't have the 2-door, had the 4-door. My friend had just crashed his you remember the old Mercury Capri with the 2.8 V8 V6 in it? He had
Yep.
just crashed that. He was going to junk it. I said, dude, how much you want for the motor? He sold me the motor and transmission. I ended up putting that into the Datsun 510. It was a thing of beauty for how old I was at the time. I shaved the back door handles. On the back of the trunk, it said, save the whales, harpoon a fat chick. It was the theme at the time in the 80s. But that was a beautiful car. I mean, it was trash. It was a neighborhood trash car, but it was awesome, man. It was fast. My second, I got a tie for second in that I got a job. I ended up buying a 914 71, and I built the motor, carbs, everything, 3-puck disc, clutch in it, the whole 9 yards. I blew it up in like a week, right? And so my buddy who was into rotary motors, he goes, dude, throw a rotary motor in it. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, we'll just put a rotary motor in it. We can get a conversion kit. I forgot the name of the place. It's not in business anymore, but Racing Beat had just started back then. And I don't know if you know about Racing Beat, but they're still in business today. They're out there close to Anaheim. We used to go get the templates. We'd be carving our own ports and all that stuff in the garage, building motors. and I ended up putting a 12A because the 13B was hard to find at the time. A 12A with a 48 Weber on it, and it was a beautiful car. I put the radiator up front and the whole 9 yards, but that car I enjoyed. It was fast.
Fun.
So Carl, you know you're talking to a California guy when legal tender is a surfboard.
Yes.
Right?
I got my first car. I traded him with a surfboard.
Yep.
Anyway,
All right. So that was your first and second car, which, by the way, my second car was a Datsun B210, but I didn't soup
Ooh.
it up. It was a wagon. My dad, it was a company
Still
car
sweet.
that I was able to buy. But what was, of all the cars or bikes that you've owned, so we had your first one, what was your favorite one?
The favorite is what I have now, and it's still apart. It's not together yet. It's a 2018 Mustang GT. I purchased a 5.2 RPG motor for it. I got a Kellemer race tranny for it. I just put in a K member up front. That's my favorite car. Before I blew it up, it was pushing 870 to the rear wheels. Just magnificent to drive.
Wow.
I mean, incredible. So that's
my horsepower, my man. That's some horsepower.
Well, the new motor's supposed to put out 1,500. So they say, and it's got a Whipple though. It's a Whipple E85 car.
Got it. All right. So that was first favorite. What's your current driver today, car or bike?
My current driver is just picked up in an AMG GLE 63S, and it is a beautiful car. Twin turbo V8, all-wheel drive. I mean, it's amazing.
Fast and luxury. I like it.
Yeah.
Favorite. And then finally, Joe, what's your dream car?
My dream car? I'm going to go wide brush on this one because I already have pretty much my dream car, which is the 18 Mustang. Is any car that will spank anything that they're putting out on the market as an exotic, and these dudes pay all this money and they just get mopped by some kid or some dude, and like it's like Fast and the Furious when that dude in that Ferrari gets mopped by that Supra, you know?
Yeah.
Just that feeling is worth any amount of money, in my opinion.
That's a sleeper. I'm a Volkswagen Beetle guy. I've had about 4 or 5 of them, and my sleeper dream car is to put some monster motor in a Beetle, old Beetle, not the new body, old school, and just pull up on people and just smoke them. That's one of my dreams for a fun, just sleeper car.
That's a great.
Now we're gonna get a little serious now, and I know you got a little choked up earlier, which is great. Thank you for sharing and being transparent. Which is, what would you tell, and you kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier, Joe, which is, what would you tell young Joe, or what would you tell your son would be some words of wisdom that you wish you'd have known back then? And let me give you a caveat. Some of the people that and it doesn't have to be profound. It could be something as simple as be nice to people. It could be humble. We've had a whole bunch of different answers to this one. Most of them are just real practical, like, duh, you should do that in life. But it's the consistency of doing it every day to everybody all the time. So what would you tell young Joe?
Be less angry. Think out the situation. I would tell my son or my daughter, just handle things in a nice way until it's time not to be nice, right? I mean, you get more flies with honey, sugar than you do with anything else, So that, most of it to me, looking back on things is not to the child I'm raising, it's to the person raising the child. You know what I mean? Because that's where it all starts. And I would say to those people, whatever your kid's into, I don't care if it's video games. I don't care if he's braiding hair for a living or a girl doing the other stuff. Realize what they're good at and nurture that. Help them along. Show them like what you're doing can be profitable if you do it this way. I think in my life growing up, I was talented at things. Who knows? I could have been a doctor. You know what I mean? But I didn't have parents that recognized any of that, any artwork, any car work. I mean, you got a 16-year-old switching out a motor in your driveway. I'm telling you, you got somebody that needs nurturing, you know? And the only nurturing I had were some hippies down the street from Santa Monica that moved into the neighborhood that were gearheads too. And that they weren't the best role models, you know? The best role model should be your parent and see those actions in you, see what you're good at, and nurture that shit, you know? So,
Yeah, no, good stuff.
Good advice.
Well, I was talking to a guest the other day, and I just said, you know, we all need, even if we're an entrepreneur and a self-motivated guy and a driven person, we all need a good job. We all need to attaboy from time to time, just to continue down that path, right? So, Joe, you've inspired me. Again, just first time meeting you and having this, you know, open conversation with transparency and hearing your story of service to our country, fatherhood, the amazing story of finding your pops freaking right down the block, is amazing. So, and I can relate. My dad grew up in an orphanage from when he was 8 till 18. My wife's adopted, so a lot of those things are hit close to home for me. So thanks for sharing that, being willing to share it. And yeah, we'll hope to see you around. I will say, this is my challenge to you. I don't know how much time you need. I want to see that finished Mustang ASAP.
yeah, I'm on it. I am on it. And I promise you, I'll send you footage. And you know what? One last thing. I mean, all of us here, we're not spring chickens, but that doesn't mean we're done. You know what I mean? And you know, as far as I'm concerned, go to the gym in the morning. Go to the gym in the morning. Take care of yourself. You know, yeah, you can drink and you can do all that, but still exercise. Take care of yourself. Watch your diet, because you know what? When we're gone, who's left to show these guys anything that we know? You know, that goes for you and you. You know what I mean? You guys are doing a great thing here, and I really appreciate it.
We appreciate you, man, especially for being willing to do this on just such short notice. I appreciate it more than you know, Joe. And I will look forward to seeing you out at the Rabbit again.
I'll see you again. We will get
All right,
together.
my friend. Thank you
Thank you
so
very much.
Carl. Good talking to you.
We
Any
need to
last
get
words,
Carl.
Carl?
We need to get
All
Carl.
good, appreciate it. And Joe, if you think of anybody that you want us to talk to, you think we should talk to, just let us know. Reach out to Stan, and we'll be happy to jump on. I know we met a bunch of cool guys last night, so hopefully we can talk to all of you and hear everybody's stories. So thank you.
Fantastic. You're welcome.
All right,
Bye-bye.
see you guys.
Bye.